Welcome everyone to our Walk with Faith with Molly Faith podcast. Please welcome Dr. Vanessa. Hi, Dr. Vanessa.
Hey Molly, how's it going?
Good. How are you today?
I am doing well. I'm having a wonderful day. I'm super excited to talk to you and have this conversation. So I have all the feels right now. I can't even explain it.
I'm excited too. I was so happy when you reached out to me. I was really excited. And you're in the Texas area, right?
Correct. Yes, I'm in Houston, Texas.
Okay. Did you grow up in Texas?
I actually grew up right next door in Louisiana, in like a small town in Louisiana. I grew up there, lived there through college, ended up moving to the Midwest, to like Indiana and Chicago for medical school and residency. And then I moved to Houston about 4 years ago.
Okay. Why did you decide to move to Houston?
So with family being so close, like in the neighboring state, it was a lot easier to make the decision. And I had a wonderful job opportunity at the time at Baylor College of Medicine, where I was able to work as a clinician and do some teaching with like medical students and residents, which I was super interested in at the time. So it was like a perfect time to go. And it was right at the start of the pandemic. And so I knew that I wanted to make a change, and Texas just ended up being the place for me.
Okay. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So, what led you to follow your passions and to want to assist and help people?
So, that's a very interesting question, because I think I've always had a fond interest in people since I was a young girl. And something that I found was that I always empathized with people. Like I always felt for people. I always felt like I looked at people in a different way, and especially as a child. And so I had, kind of certain things happen in my childhood. I wouldn't say I had a rough upbringing, but I grew up in a single parent household, which can be very challenging, especially for like a mom with 4 kids. And so for me, I was like, well, what is the thing that I can do to help get out of here? And I was absolutely in love with my childhood physician. And I always thought he did such a great job at like taking care of us, and whatever questions I had or anything that I wanted to know from him to kind of help me along in my journey, he was able to help me. And so I decided, okay, maybe medicine is the way to go to get to work with people, work with them on a different level. Of course, naturally, I think we all want to be healers when we go into medicine. So that was something that was super intriguing to me. And so medicine just happened to be the thing that like opened the gateway to everything it is that I do right now.
That's what's interesting. So, yes, you work with, as a doctor, traditional medicine, but also you are a naturopath, right? A medicine woman, plant medicine woman. Can you explain to people what you do exactly?
Right. So it's interesting. I actually stepped out of traditional medicine. I took a big leap of faith last year. I stepped away from traditional medicine. But when I did do traditional medicine, I had training in integrative medicine and women's health. So I did a lot of women's health from like a holistic aspect, right? I saw some men in my practice, but I definitely took care of more women. And in that time period of kind of like figuring out, okay, what is it that I actually want to do? Because primary care, I felt, was just like not the thing for me. Just coming in, writing prescriptions all day, seeing 40 patients, it just wasn't sustainable. And I realized really quickly that wasn't going to work for my life. In 2021, January 2021, I had a calling. I was actually driving home from Texas to Louisiana, and I crossed over this bridge where a lot of my family was from. And when I crossed over the bridge, I heard this voice in my head, and it's like, you're going to be a healer. And I had no idea what that meant. So when I got home to Louisiana, I asked my aunt, I was like, hey, I just felt like I had this voice talking to me on the road, and almost like I was called to be a healer. And she's like, well, your great-great-grandmother on my grandmother's father's side was a healer in Louisiana. And so people would go to them for like faith healing and different things. And so I kind of sat and I resonated with that a little bit. Um, just, to figure out kind of what that meant for me. And so at that time, I actually started taking herbalist courses to become a herbalist on top of being a physician, just to kind of strengthen my background from like a plant medicine perspective, to have a better understanding about like herbs, nutrition, different things that people could use, like incorporate into like the traditional health aspect. And so that's where like the herbalist part of it came. And I also, identify as like an intuitive healer because maybe I want to say 2019, September 2019, I had another experience when I was in residency where I was on the phone with a friend having a regular conversation, and I just felt like this veil was like lifted off of my eyes and I could see life differently. And what that was, it was almost like a layer being exposed. Like I felt like I could see into people in a different way. And so what I did for the years that I was like in residency, and kind of unknowingly did also when I was in residency and in practice, I fine-tuned those skills. And the more and more I started to work with people, I feel like more and more layers were being opened up for me. And so now when I work with people, like as an intuitive, I can a person comes in with kind of XYZ, and I just use all of my gifts to kind of help them in whatever way works for them. So one person may come in and I feel like I can see it to this aspect of their soul, or, they tell me what they're coming in for, and I could see this wound come up, or this wound come up, or this thing come up. And so it's a very unique, way to put a lot of different healing modalities together, but it's largely guided by like intuition and then like the spiritual insight that I get when I channel, for those things specifically.
Wow, that is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
That's really incredible. Can you feel like, let's say someone came in and they were having a pain. Can you feel a pain in somebody's area? Has that been developed?
I can't feel it if I touch them, but I can feel it in myself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wow.
so someone will come in, and even sometimes I even feel things in people that they don't tell me about, or that they don't know. They can come in and I'm like, well, what's going on with your left foot or your right arm? And they're like, oh, well, how'd you know? It's like I just have these feelings and these things that come to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very interesting, Molly, because, with being on social media, we have so much more access to people that we don't know. And so sometimes even on social media, like I'll look at a person, I'm like, man, they're struggling with blank, or they're dealing with this, or they're, experiencing these things. It can even be as far as that. And these are people who aren't even in front of me at all. Just someone that I could see
Yeah.
randomly.
You can see it
Mm-hmm.
within their spirit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Um, so how do you utilize that now? Like, because do you have your own practice, right? Your own business?
So I have my own business. It's Gallien Apothecary, and so I basically do most of my work like through the apothecary, and it's a holistic women's health apothecary. And it's a little bit different from the traditional apothecary where at one point I did sell products and different things. I no longer do. How I've kind of transformed it is I work with women primarily, right? And so I have like books and guides and educational resources for women. That's one way I think that I help women understand a lot of these different things that are happening from a women's health perspective. And then I do intuitive health coaching, and then I do offer like holistic health and holistic women's health coaching as well, in that space. And so it's like you could either, utilize like educational resources or work with me one-on-one or in a group setting. And something that I'm actually going to start rolling out soon is starting to do like women's circles
Oh
with
my
women.
gosh. Yes.
Yeah, to work with women so we can kind of all help each other in our healing journeys. That's something that
I
I felt
love
I've been
that.
feeling more and more called to do. Yeah, I'm
Wow.
super excited about
Oh
this.
my gosh. Yes, that is so wonderful. I love that so much. I just got like the
Yeah.
warmest feeling that rushed over me through my soul. That's beautiful. That's exactly what we need, you know? We all need
And
to come together, be working with one another. We all, I feel like all women have the ability in one way or another to really heal each other.
oh, we do for
Yeah,
sure,
nurturers,
for sure.
lovers, I mean, we give birth. We're creators, co-creators with the creator. So I think what you're doing, putting together, is a massive blessing that this planet needs. Wow.
Yeah. And something that I've noticed, Molly, over the years, because I can definitely say I'm an old soul. So I grew up largely spending a lot of time at my grandmother's house. And I remember, like, when we were kids, she was in her 70s, and we used to, like, pile up into her little car and, like, drive to the country and go to her sister's house. And then, like, maybe some of her cousins would be there, and, like, some of her sisters, or it was just a group of older women talking, and just having that experience, like seeing them in that space, I realized that now, we're in a different type of like connectedness, right? Where we're all connected, like on our phones and across social media, but there's not as much like one-on-one human connection going
Right.
on, I think, as there used to be.
Right.
And so even trying to figure out, like, how do I utilize this space that we have, whether we're coming together virtually or in person, it's like just bringing that connectedness back to women like we used to have, because, we're the holder of like all the secrets, all the information, all the
Absolutely.
knowledge. Like, we hold all those things between us. And I think whether or not those things are inherently known or not, even if we come together in those spaces, I think we'll start to explore parts of ourselves that'll help each other or help ourselves, whether we knew they existed or not. I think it's just creating a space for women to
Yeah.
have that is like so paramount right now.
I agree. I think that's so incredible because that's something that's been coming out a lot is I know with the pandemic, everything was from afar. There was less
Mm-hmm.
contact and everything was online. But now we're almost transitioning. In the last podcast, what Tamika was saying, she's like, we need to get together and have a bonfire, and I'll do,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nancy as well was saying, one of our soul family members, she's like talking about Native American flute, and we were talking about drumming and our ancestors and our guides. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, even with Trina, she's building this facility for, everyone to come and do healing work. And with what you're talking about now as well, this is exactly what we're stepping into, is where we're actually coming together in the physical, not
Correct.
just,
Correct.
and
Really cool.
that is,
Mm-hmm.
it's massive. It's
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I,
it's so, it's just so, I can't even, there are no amount of words to tell you, like, when I talk to my ancestors and I talk to my guides, like, my messages are so always the same. And it's like the work is necessary. Like, it has to
mm-hmm,
happen. Like, we need to start coming together and just unlocking our because I think we're all medicine women to like a certain degree, right?
mm-hmm.
And I think it's like unlocking that inner medicine woman in each of us and exploring what our gifts and our talents are, no matter what those things are. All of those little things kind of come together to raise the entire like heart, consciousness of the
Right.
collective. And so if I can assist in that in any way, shape, or form, that's really what I want to do.
I love that. You're a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful divine feminine energy. It really is about coming into the heart space and wanting to empower each other to find our gifts, our talents, what we're good at, and stepping into our power in the most loving, genuine way. So that way we can not
Right.
only assist ourselves, our ancestors, our lineage, but the planet.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that you talk about it is so passionate. We need to
It's
empower each other. That's what we need. It's
yeah.
like, putting, it's almost like, here's your crown for this queen here and step into your power. And I'm here to
Correct.
help and
Correct.
assist you find that.
Mm-hmm. And years ago, because I've had my journey has not been one of all, butterflies and hearts and roses, right? We all have to deal with like these shadow aspects of ourselves to really unearth like these parts of ourselves that I think that we need to share with the world. But something that I realized, one day I was just sitting there and I was so lost and I had no idea what to do. And, I got on my knees and I just sat there and I prayed and I prayed and I was like, God, show me what it is that you want me to do with all of these things that I have, right? Because I think sometimes when you have so much of something, it can be super confusing on how do I infuse all these things together to put out exactly what it is that I'm meant to do or where I need to be. And so, God told me that I'd be a bridge between science and spirituality. And that always rings true to my mind, because I think sometimes what I realize, like from the traditional medicine aspect of things, is we know these plans, we have these plans, we have these models, we have these algorithms and these things, they're, you're supposed to spit them out and they work. And I think that works in some aspects of life, but I think whenever you look at people for who they truly are, each of us has our own frequency and our own vibe and who we are. And I think that when you try to put like one size fits all solutions onto people from the true essence of who we are, that doesn't always work when it comes to like our healing journeys and the journeys deep down into who we are as ourselves. And so if I can be that bridge between those things, helping people heal, to help them, gain health or wellness or whatever it is that they want to do, like being able to be that bridge for people is something that I identify with so heavily.
I love that.
And yeah.
So you said right now, it hasn't always been, what did you say, butterflies and roses?
It's not. It's not. No.
So I'm going to get to this question for you. What triggered your spiritual journey or finding faith, your calling? What triggered all this for you? Was there a moment in time that shifted?
I think it's a journey. If I'm being honest, I think it's a journey that I've always been on since I was a young, I can go back to being some of my earliest memories, because I think, if you believe in like reincarnation and like our soul's journey, right? There is that time in the beginning when we come into this life, right? Where we have that kind of sense of like forgetfulness, right? And so sometimes like when I do channel or I try to go back into my life to do like past life work, or I try to think back to what some of my earliest memories are, right? And a lot of my earliest memories are like me with people, like me experiencing a person, in a certain place. I remember one of my most vivid memories was I was traveling. We were driving home from family vacation one summer, and we stopped at a Whataburger. And that's probably honestly the only time I've ever been to Whataburger in my life. And there was a homeless man there. And my dad, the man asked my dad, hey, do you guys have any money or anything? And my dad was like, well, I don't have any spare change, but I have this 6-pack of beer. And I know how much the 6-pack of beer meant to my dad. And so for me, actually watching him give the 6-pack of beer to someone else, that meant a lot for me. And I remember feeling that so deeply in my soul at like 4 years, I was like 4 or 5 years old. I cried the entire way home. And so I realized, like, when I looked into people and some of, just seeing people do these good deeds for people, it kind of set like a blueprint for me for how to live, right? To always be kind to people, always be caring, always be willing to help someone. And kind of from that time to then as a child, I grew up largely spending a lot of time with my grandmother. My mom was a single mom, so she worked a lot of the time. So we spent a lot of time with my grandmother, but my grandmother was Catholic. She grew up in the Catholic church. And so then we ended up spending a massive amount of time at church. So from like 5 to 20 plus years old, I spent a lot of my time in that church, right? And so a lot of my faith was built in that church, right? But what I realized over time was that I had different, what I'd call like awakenings, right? Different parts of me that I felt like woke up to certain things. And then I started to explore, more things about spirituality. I started to explore Buddhism and Hinduism and just different religions. And then over time, I started to explore, different things like human design or numerology. And what I've noticed over time is that I've been able to kind of cultivate just like that foundation of who I am and utilize all these different aspects of things to really come to who I am for where I am in my life spiritually. And it's a very integrative approach, right? So I feel like I can integrate different aspects of myself and my faith and my a lot of it has to do with myself, but I feel like I can integrate a lot of those different aspects into myself at different times, depending on when I need to pull on them. And I think that helps me a lot in my soul's journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Just having all those different modalities to pull on when I need to.
I love that. And then you were mentioning too, incorporating both the science and the spirituality, which I firmly agree. I believe that they go hand in hand. I don't believe that there is a separation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Because science was such a big part of my life. And I grew up, I was like a little nerd. I was the kid who, won the spelling bees and was in school, straight A student. A lot of my identity comes from like that aspect of myself. But what I realize now at this age, right, is that a lot of my identity comes from that time in my life, but also a lot of my shadow work has to do with aspects of myself that I built during that time, right? So I might have taken on like a lot of people-pleasing behaviors, a lot of like perfectionist behaviors and those kinds of things because I could do really well in school, or I knew that, I could be Miss Goody Two-Shoes or whatever those things are, right? I find that a lot of my shadow aspects of myself identified with those parts of myself. And so as even something as, I was doing a meditation the other day, Molly, and I kid you not, when I was thinking about me practicing medicine, right? Medicine was largely a big escape for me. So from a very, very young age, I think I was like 3 or 4 when I made the decision that I wanted to be a doctor. So much of myself was like, okay, I have to do this because I need to get out of this space, or I need to get good grades so I can go to college and like, stay on this trajectory to become this thing. Not realizing that so much of my soul survival and a lot of the survival techniques that I had built for myself were tied to medicine, to where even practicing medicine in some aspects of it was like a part of my shadow side. And just coming to that realization was very, very eye-opening because we can't stay in the light and the shadow at the same time, right? We have to work on our shadow self to get closer and closer to the light. And having that realization about something that was so paramount in my life was extremely, extremely eye-opening, to where I don't even look at like practicing medicine the same anymore, because I have to look at how my shadow self, identified with like the actual practice of medicine.
Right. And so, but it assisted you in getting tools and knowledge that you, and also your own healing, acknowledging your shadow, and now moving into which you're truly passionate about.
And so when I look at medicine, I'm thankful for everything, especially the knowledge base, right? Having such a strong knowledge base and like the physical aspect of us as humans. I wouldn't trade that. I wouldn't actually trade any of it for the world, because I think each thing that I've done has helped me in my soul's journey. But a lot of it has to do with like having the opportunity to encounter so many people and experience so many different people, experience so many different auras. And, now I can like read auras, and I can I don't think had I not been in medicine, I wouldn't have had those opportunities to like really learn people from like a spiritual level, had I not been in medicine. So it worked hand in hand, you know, for me exploring like aspects of my shadow and my light. I think it was like the perfect thing to help me do that, as far as like where I'm going to move now into like this role as like a healer and a medicine woman.
So being around all those people, addressing your shadow, and how do you think that it helped you evolve with understanding and operating for, I would say yes, but I'm asking you from a
Mm-hmm.
compassionate state, empathy. Could you feel
Oh
that off of
yes.
people too?
Oh yes, for sure. Because I think the one thing, you know, when I practiced, especially when I was in medical school and residency, right? I always coined myself on like leading with empathy, right? I felt that like every encounter that I had with people, if I led with empathy, then I could, you know, foster great relationships with people to help them on a deeper level. So that was always like at the forefront of my mind, is like lead with empathy, lead with compassion. And when you do that, you realize that you give people the opportunity to really be themselves, to not have to put that wall or that barrier up. And if they, let's say they have put that wall or that barrier up, it helps them pull it down a little bit more to help understand exactly what it is that they need or where you can help them. For sure, like those are like key things for the foundation of who I am. It's actually, you know, when I was channeling this morning, one of the first things that I actually wrote out when I channeled was, you know, heart-centered living and having a heart filled with compassion and empathy, because that's always something that
Right.
just is always reiterated to me.
Yeah, because I feel like that's something people are not used to. They do have those boundaries up, or um, it's difficult for them to get into that heart space, that vulnerable state. So when you reach out to your patients or the individuals that you work with, and you do it from this empathetic state with compassion in your heart space, it makes a huge difference.
It does. It does. Because I think a lot of working with people starts with like meeting people exactly where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it has working with people and healing people has so very little to do with me that I don't even think people understand it. It has so little to do with me, right? I just use my intuition and my spiritual insights to kind of guide them along. But a lot of it has to do with just meeting them where they are, like
Yeah.
letting them step into their space of like exactly where they are, and that's where we start. And if we start at the same place 7 times, we start at the same place 7 times.
Right.
But I let their energy kind of guide that. I just try to always show love, caring, compassion, understanding, and then let them, you know, do the rest.
Well, that is massive healing right there. Is
Mm-hmm.
meeting somebody where they're at and being them for them as a support system with love and
Right.
compassion. Yeah. Because not every individual, like you were saying before, it's almost like, we're not cookie cutters,
Mm-mm.
yeah,
No,
so
we're
it's going to
not.
be different. It could be, one or three times or 7 times to start at that same spot, and that's okay.
And that's a message that I always try to impart on people also. It's like not just with me, right? With life. We're all on varying aspects of like our soul healing journey, right? And we're all at different spaces and like doing the work that like our souls, were put here to do, right? But there is no blueprint for how we do these things, right? We let spirit and life and the
Mm-hmm.
divine guide us. And I think a lot of it has to do with like alignment, right? Aligning with like who we are, for our greatest good. And a lot of times, and we see this with karmic relationships, karmic patterns, like a lot of times we make the same mistakes
Right.
over and over and over and over again. And that's okay too, right? It's when we finally do have that one revelation to say, okay, maybe I need to do this different, or maybe I can approach this person differently or feel this differently. Once that change happens, sometimes that's what we need, but sometimes it takes a lot of repetition to get to those spaces. And I think I try to impart that wisdom onto people to let them know, like, it's not, nothing is overnight, and none of us have the same like blueprint. We're all on a different journey. It's just the
Absolutely.
fact that we're on the journey and doing the work is what matters.
Absolutely. Yeah, because what you said is so important. It's like, um, I think it's taking responsibility for our
Mm-hmm.
choices and our actions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not placing blame. Not saying that someone else isn't responsible for their actions. Of course they are, but what are we doing within ourselves that we keep
Right.
getting into these cycles? What do we have to do to change it? What do we have to close out? What do we have to change, shift, grow from, acknowledge within ourselves? Like we were talking
Right.
about, people pleasing, or so I think that's really important. And it's all going to be a different timeline. We all have a different
It
journey,
is.
and
It
how many
is.
times we have to learn that lesson and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge it, and why we're doing what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But we still lead with compassion and love
Yeah.
and empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes those lessons, they happen, those patterns can last a long
Oh my
time.
gosh,
But
Vanessa.
something else, like lately I've been in like a quantum leap kind of space, right? When I'm like, I didn't expect that to happen that fast. And so I think that even sometimes when we think we're not doing the work is being done, and recognizing that, like, as we're on this journey, like those quantum leaps can happen. And it's being okay and accepting of that type of like time period as well. Because a lot of times I think sometimes when we have those quantum leaps or jumps, we think that we're not deserving, or we feel that we missed something, but it all happens in divine time,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Everything is
Yeah.
divinely guided. It's divine timing. And I think that's something that people work or are working on too. Like for me, it was like that 17, almost 18-year cycle. Why did I
Yeah.
choose to stay in such a long cycle like
Yeah.
that? So that was something I had to work on within myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not
I
just,
think my cycle was
yeah,
like 13 years.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And then we'll get tested. Like new things will
Mm-hmm.
come in, and I'm like, whoa, 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 I'm seeing the signs. Like, no. And we still want to operate from that loving space, but yet we have to understand that no, we have to set those boundaries. It's self
Mm-hmm.
love, it's our healing journey, and it can take us off as well,
Yeah.
our path. So, yeah, but working, I think one of the most important things, I'm sure you do this with women, is the worthiness, the knowing that their worth, their power.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I always try to impart that onto people. Um, the sense of self to me is like at the heart of our soul's journey, right? And I think that, like, as we work on like all these varying aspects of ourselves, self-worth is one of the ones that is extremely difficult for people to accept and be okay with. Self-worth and self-love are the two that are right there at the top. And,
Right.
people struggle with those because I think we're often taught to think for others, right? We think for the sake of others. I look at it as if we think for the sake of ourselves, right? Like, others will fall in line with that, and things will like either align with you, or they will misalign and go
Right.
their separate ways.
Right.
But self-love, self-worth, to me, like, the top of the list of things that as women we definitely, definitely, definitely will always have to work on, will continue to work on, because a lot of times, sometimes for myself, right, I get into these patterns. And, I was talking to my partner recently, and I think I might have mentioned something along the lines of like, I welcome triggers whenever they come, because they really keep me in a state of like continual self-improvement and like doing the work with myself, right? I enjoy the time when I have these like ups and I'm just up, right? But if the triggers come, I try not to run away from them. And a lot of that is to teach me that, one, like where I've been, right? Two, like I'm worth doing the work on myself to be better and to get closer to the light every single day. Okay. And so even seeing the worth from the sense of like myself, looking at myself, and not just like from the sense of someone else, it makes such a huge difference in like, you know, who we are and how we improve like on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. Yeah, because, and it's true, you know, you're having self-worth and self-love is so important. And it has not, I think, a misconception is people thinking that it's a lack of humility. It's not. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between having self-love, self-worth, and also self-respect, right? Mm-hmm. And having a massive ego. So right. And I think that's where a lot of women get nervous. They're like, okay, well, if I'm standing in my power and I'm shining bright, are people, this is where outside approval comes in. What are people going to think? No, having self-love, self-respect, loving yourself, getting to the light, right? Shining brightly is a beautiful thing, because what is aligned for you will always come to you. It will become aligned with you in your path. And whatever is not will fall away or be removed, you know, energetically. Mm-hmm. Because anything that is meant for you in your life will want you to feel empowered, will want you to love yourself, will love you the same. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. So I think that's something that's really important for feminines out there, is to stand in that self-love.
And it's understanding that if something is indeed not for you, and not for your greatest good, it's understanding how to
release,
separate from that energy and right. release in a way that still allows for self-preservation, and not feeling the need to like dim your light in that process.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Well, see, and that's the important thing too, is anything that's aligned with you will want you to shine brightly, not want you to dim your light, not want you to shy away from who you truly are. And yeah, of course, you know, removing yourself with, I always feel like removing yourself with grace and love, but also setting those boundaries. So that way you don't feel like you're diminished in any way or repressed of who you truly are, because really that feminine energy is something so sacred, so powerful and beautiful that should be empowered and embraced. And for a long time it was suppressed. So I think what you're doing is absolutely incredible. I do have a question for you.
Ask away.
Okay. Were there any, or what were some of the most difficult challenges that you've had to overcome, whether it was assisting others or just in your life's journey, that you were able to overcome?
Difficult challenges.
Lessons, challenges.
Inner child healing.
Okay.
Probably sits at like the top of that list. The top, inner child healing for sure. Because what I realized as I started to work on, you know, myself, when I really started this, I call it the journey of like unbecoming and becoming, right? I feel like it's a journey that happens at the same time. But what I realized was that I had operated from a sense of, okay, I want to be this thing. And in order to become this thing, I need to live like a certain kind of life, right? And so what I realized was that I had suppressed so much of like who I truly was over 30 plus years, that one day I looked in the mirror and I was like, man, I have no idea who I am.
Right.
Right. And so a lot of my healing had to do with going back to like young me, like little Vanessa. And it's so cute because I have a picture. I always have an image of like when I look at her, like who she is, right? And it's a lot of like going back to her. And, you know, a lot of times, even when I do these meditations or this work, you know, I go back to my house and I play with her and I tell her that I love her and I try to be there for her in ways that she would have needed at that time, and help break down a lot of those barriers that were put up over my life to where I can finally have an understanding of like, okay, this is actually who I am. This is who I'm meant to be. This is what I identify with. And no longer feel the need to keep up. What I realized is I put up a lot of like, facades. I wore a lot of masks. You know, I had to operate in this space, so I want to be this. So I would suppress so many aspects of myself. And so doing that healing, and when I finally got to the space where I felt like I was finally healed, you know, I can look at my inner child and say, wow, you know, now we're one. We're on the same page with each other. And doing that work allowed me to release so much of like everything else that came through my life, right? Maybe, you know, mother wounds, father wounds, relationship dynamics, operating in like these people-pleasing tendencies. Right. As I did all of that work, different aspects of my life, I felt kind of faded away, or I was willing to like break off relationships because they no longer served me and they weren't reciprocal. And it's understanding the importance of reciprocity. Absolutely. And all of those things, you know, accepting people for who they are and not who I want them to be. All of those things were like little things that I got to work on during that time. But it all started with the true inner child healing for me.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned different masks and facades, you know, healing that inner child. It's also, I think, a lot of individuals, what you're helping them with, and is releasing the fear of, like with people pleasing, it's also judgment, right? Mm-hmm. Being mm-hmm. judged, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, releasing that fear of judgment, loving who you are, the self, and embracing all aspects of who you are, which is absolutely mm-hmm. beautiful. That's what makes us who we are, you know.
Because I remember when I decided to leave traditional medicine, right? When I made the choice, it was a choice that I was like more than willing to make, right? Because mm-hmm. I'm like, I had gotten to the point, Molly, where I would go to work and I felt like I couldn't do the work anymore. Mm-hmm, like mm-hmm. I couldn't, you know, you would come and see me for high cholesterol, let's say, right? And I couldn't just say, oh, well, eat this food, take this medicine, and like, I'll see you in 3 months. It was to where when I looked at people, I would say, okay, you need to work on like X, Y, Z. Or I had a patient come in and she's coming into me for fertility issues. And I'm like, well, let's work on balancing your sacral chakra. Like right. Those are the right. things and downloads that are coming to me in the moment. And I don't think people realize when you're in a position, like, yes, I could have went to work and faked it, right? And continued working, right? But that's not in alignment with like who I am. Right. Or, you know, the work that I'm meant to do with people. And I remember making the decision to leave. I got so much backlash. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. You know, what are your parents gonna think? What about this? What about that? And you realize that people only see you as one way. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes in stepping away, it gives opportunities for people to see you for who you really are. But so many people are just so used to this conventional way that we live. You know, to say, you know, I'm going to step away from being, you know, a physician to actually work as like an intuitive and a healer. I think that it's so vastly different for some people to understand, that they can, you know, impart a lot of their thoughts and their beliefs on you. And it's really standing firm and like because at one point I was like, am I really making the right decision? But I had to realize, like, God wouldn't have brought me this way. I wouldn't have all of these things happen in my life to line up to me getting to this moment to be like, no, actually, you made the wrong decision. What I had to start doing is kind of filtering out those thoughts and those comments, and not necessarily ignoring people, but it's like hearing the information and processing it and just letting it be, and really standing firm in like who I am and what I want for myself and what I want for my life. And I think the more and more I was able to be okay with that, the more and more I just felt like doors started opening for me, and the way that channel changed and the downloads that I was given changed. The more and more I could just find myself becoming in alignment with like who I was meant to be. The more and more everything else around me just lined up for it to be that way, and then the less and less I had of the opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Standing in your power, following your destiny. This is a calling for you. You could feel it in your soul,
Yeah.
And the Most High was leading you in that direction, giving you the knowledge and tools, but taking you even farther. And yeah, I feel like I guess like our society, that is not the norm, but it's becoming more the norm in a way, because there's more individuals speaking their truth, starting these practices of natural healing, guidance. I mean, it's really opening up the eyes, I feel like, of individuals that were closed off to it before.
Correct.
Yeah. And you're right. The people from the past, they're used to. I have this too with like family. I don't talk to them that often, but they're still stuck in the past, But I think our job is to progress, to evolve, to change, to step into who we are, and not stay stagnant or in the past. So, do you still have people around you, family members, people from the past? Or is this a whole new journey for you with new individuals?
I think that it's a mix of both. I think that what I've realized is maybe some family who I might not have been close to in the past, we are becoming a lot closer because I think we're all on this type of journey together.
That's wonderful.
It's like learning to spend time with like the people who help with my soul's progression. So it's like spending more time with them. I actually just met a cousin a couple weeks ago, and we were talking, and I had been having this like kind of like this voice, or whatever you want to call it, had been coming to me. It was like, you need to buy an evil eye necklace. You need to buy an evil eye necklace. And this cousin that I just met a few weeks ago for the first time, she had posted something about it online too, and she's like, yeah, my ancestors have been talking to me. And I'm like, wait, our ancestors talk to you too? So it's like something as simple as that, realizing like the more and more people who are meant to be aligned with me will be, and that's having family in that space, because it could be an extremely isolating time when you're going through this type of journey, but realizing like, okay, I have family who will support me in this and who will be there with me through thick and thin. I have that. And what I've realized is that the more and more I'm online, I've started to come across people who are on similar soul journeys. And so I've been connecting with more people in the online space, like finding, even coming across like your channel and like listening to you and now doing the podcast. The online space has been a good place to actually meet people and, find my tribe.
Right. It's all started. It's so interesting because it really does. Everything does start in the spirit, right? And then now everyone is finding, is becoming aligned or being pulled together, whether it's online. And I can't wait to get everybody together in the physical. That I think people are getting very motivated to do that at this point. So, but yeah, like you were saying before, the people that are aligned, they will come to you. Yeah. So, do you have any guidance or tips and tools that you want to share with people that you can give them now?
Yeah, I thought about that, and meditated on that energy a lot before our call. And something that I really find that I think I work with people most, which would be the message that I want to share the most, is that letting people know that no matter where we are, like I said earlier, no matter where we are on our soul healing journey, right? We all have this kind of core soul frequency that identifies with us, right? And I think the more and more that we can start to feel that frequency, be open to that frequency, and identify with the frequency, I think the more and more that we get into that space, it makes the journey to ourselves a lot easier. And it allows, spirit, the divine, to guide us on that journey with ourselves. And so if I could impart anything onto anyone, is that we already come equipped with like everything that we need inside of us. It's already there. Mm-hmm. It's just being open to ourselves, listening to our soul, listening to our inner voice, listening to our higher self, connecting with our higher self, with whoever comes to you, whether it's like your spirit guides, your ancestors, the divine, archangels, whoever and whatever those things are that are going to kind of push you along in that journey. It's being open to those things, mm-hmm. and utilizing those things like in our soul healing.
Right.
That to me has been like the most like what I preach to people. It's just being open, hearing the voices, recognizing the synchronicities, and realizing that all of these things are kind of coming to us for a specific reason, to help us along this journey.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Vanessa. So do you want to share anything about, and you don't have to, but about divine counterparts, twin flame journeys, anything like that for anybody?
Do you work? Of course. I don't mind at all.
Okay.
I don't mind at all. That's another aspect of this journey that we're on that that could be like a whole. It's always like a whole other podcast.
I know, right? But I wanted to get a little bit.
These relationships, I think that we have in life, mold us in ways that I don't even think we could begin to believe. And I remember, when I was younger, because I was in, like in medicine, and I had all these rigid rules and all these things of like, oh, I want this in a partner, I want that in a partner, I want to be married by this age, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And sticking to that mold got me absolutely nowhere. Mm-hmm. And as I got more and more into the space of like understanding things from like a spiritual level and a metaphysical level, and understanding these types of like relationships and relationship dynamics that we find ourselves in, I started to identify, which relationship was which for me in my life. And I'd been married before, divorced. I've been engaged before, ended an engagement. And so I found myself in a part of life where I was like open to what was next, but didn't necessarily have any idea what that was, right? I think also over the years I've had, multiple what I consider like karmic relationships, right? Where like those are the relationships where we really have to like learn the lessons that we are meant to learn, like in that space, let them go. And so looking back, like even earlier this year, I was in a space where I was just looking back at like all the relationships I'd ever been in, figuring out what they were for me, what were the learning lessons, what were things that I needed to work on myself. And so earlier in the year, I actually did a lot of work on those varying aspects of myself. And then kind of out of nowhere, one day I meet a person and it's like we click instantly, actually. Almost to the effect of like, gosh, I've known you for multiple lifetimes, and realizing that our soul frequencies are like identical to each other, right? Coming into that space with someone, so unexpected. I can't even tell you how unexpected it is. But at the same time, meeting that person at this phase of my life and where I am, like in this part of my journey, I realized that like it's actually no better time to come into union with that person. But you know, when you're in these like twin flame relationships, a lot of it is figuring out like the work that needs to be done in those spaces, right? And I think something that I've learned now in life compared to before was like when I operate from a sense of like true self-love, the things that are aligned for me come to me. And so I feel like this relationship is the true manifestation of that. Like what is aligned for me will come to me. And then having a partner that understands that and is that in that, you know, exact same frequency, it's like night and day with anything that I might have experienced before when I maybe wasn't in the best sense of self and who I am, you know, and what I bring to the table.
Right. Because what I love, like, as we've been talking, you're talking about, you know, all the work that you've been doing on yourself to become aligned with your soul's journey and what you want in life, and then how you're assisting others and following your passions and dreams. I mean, you've done a lot of personal development and growth, and you're at this point where you've built this business and you're helping others as well. So it truly, I mean, it's a divine timing. It's really,
It is.
it's like really coming into union. That's what I think I've been trying to tell people with the self, right? And the divine. And then it is divine timing. And here comes out of the blue somebody that resonates with you on this like soul frequency, soul level. And it's a different feeling than what you've experienced in the past.
And something, go ahead, Molly.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say something that I realized that's different in this type of relationship compared to relationships before, right?
You read my mind.
Let's say I'm battling with something, right? I'm dealing with a trigger, right? Something comes up and I'm dealing with a trigger. For the first time in life, I'm actually, one, open to share the trigger. Two, and open to like receiving the information from someone who I feels like understands me for like who I really am. And so being open to like receiving guidance and insight from someone who understands me and is not just like coming from a sense of, you know, do this, do that, don't do this, but someone who has my best interests at heart.
Right.
Once you're in that space, it just makes living life, it's like you live life effortlessly, because then I feel comfortable sharing everything and being open about everything and not feeling the need to hide this part of myself or hide that part of myself. It's like, no, this person gets me and can help me in this journey, and it's the same thing vice versa.
That's what I was gonna, because you read my mind. That's funny how our guides speak, because I was like, can you give like what it felt like before through these false relationships, these karmic relationships, and what you had to learn from them versus the relationship now. I mean, it's like you can be vulnerable, open to receive the guidance because this individual has your well-being at heart, truly cares.
Yeah. And, you know, I've been going through this last month has been like a trying one for me. I've been having a lot of, but it is, you know, astrologically and with everything going on, it is a lot of karmic cycles that are closing right now. And in that time, right, it can bring up a lot of these like last minute triggers just to kind of put the final nail on the coffin to say like, okay, I'm actually done with this thing. So I think I'm in that space right now. And so, I meditate in the morning. I'll kind of meditate during the day, but something that I do at night is I'll kind of close off the night with like my final thoughts. I'll ask myself hard questions. And lately I've been doing that, but a lot of the times I feel like I'm kind of like crying myself to sleep. I cry, like that's a thing that I do. that I allow myself to do to kind of help with my healing. It's something that I've done actually since I was a kid, right? I'll just like kind of cry on the
I
way to
think that's
sleep, but it
beautiful.
really helps me process those emotions.
Right.
And so something that I've been doing is I've been waking up and I'm like, hey, I cried myself to sleep last night. And sharing that can be extremely vulnerable, right? But then when I can get into like, this is why I did this, or, these was the questions that I was asking myself before I went to sleep, or this is what I was working on, having someone who can like listen to something so vulnerable when you share. And honestly, sometimes it just listens. And sometimes that's like all I need, right? It's just having that person there, and then he'll impart his wisdom into these things, which is like so paramount. I don't have a father anymore. My father transitioned in 2019. So I do have a father still, but he's not here with me in the physical, because I actually now talk to him and see him every day, which I think is extremely cool. But my father, I'm a daddy's girl. Like, my father meant so much to me. We were super, super close, very, very similar. He played such a big role in my life. Even with being, absent in the traditional sense, he played such a big role in my life. And, when you kind of lose that sense of a father, and to have a partner who can, in a way, provide that kind of energy in a relationship, for me, it's been extremely, extremely helpful. And just in my healing. And so even something as simple as that, and the time that we've been together, having that in this type of space, like, who knew I'd find a person to, who could bring me like those aspects that I might need to continue working on myself and bettering myself. Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. It's like, well, that's truly what it is. That's your divine masculine. It's like being able to have that protective yet loving energy around you, to where you can drop into that soft divine feminine childlike nature where you can be vulnerable. That is ideally what you want. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. I love it.
And I work with people, a lot of the work that I do with people, a lot of the lessons we learn, I think, have to do with like people and like the people in our lives, because I think people are big triggers for us. And they make us do a lot of work within ourselves. And so even working with people, I was on the phone with a friend this weekend, and I was talking to her. She's in a very similar situation to what I am. And, talking to her and explaining to her the differences in these types of relationships that we experience while we're here. It's something that I those are even things that I work with people, because I think they're all important aspects for our soul's purpose being here. And so sometimes I'm guided to like help ask people, tell me about your relationships, tell me about your partners, tell me about these things. And I think sometimes people look at me kind of weird when I ask, but they're all a part of like who we are.
Of course.
And I think they're all parts of like things that need to be explored when we're on this journey.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's anybody in our energy. It can affect us in so many different ways. Wow.
And, you talk on the podcast about, when you were in your prior relationship, and you talk about people, how it drains our life force and it takes away our energy. All of those things affect us. Even being in a relationship when, I was in a relationship once, and I started having migraines, and like all these things are happening. I'm like, this is not who I am.
Right.
Like, this isn't me. And it's like our bodies will tell us like, hey, this isn't like what's working for you. Do I think it's like the relationship itself? No, but sometimes people feed off of our energy. They take our energy. They manipulate our energy in different ways. And it's just being mindful to like the things that our body tells us when they're going on.
Absolutely. Our nervous system will tell us.
Small things. For sure. For sure.
And it's when we ignore them when we can get ourselves in trouble. But that's our learning lesson, Like for you, it took you, what did you say, was it 13 years?
13 years.
And me almost 18.
Years.
Right. So, but at least we learn.
Yeah.
So,
And I tell people a lot of times, like, I've lived so many lives in this short period of time, and I know I have a lot more to go while I'm here, but, like, that's okay. I don't think there's, like, a time. We get so attached to the time in this physical world that we live in, but I try not to let the time be, like, the defining factor for, like, making the changes that I need to make. I let the time guide me, right, from a sense of, like, this is like the amount of time I spent like working on these things. But because I have a different, when you're in the spiritual world and the 4D and the 5D, like time has a different meaning, right?
Of course.
And so helping people understand things like that, like these time frames and these time limits and timelines, like I think they're good to reflect on, but they don't have to be like limiting factors for us.
No. Of course
when we're
not.
working in this space.
Yeah, we have the ability to shift things if we do the work. You know, if we make the positive changes, alignments, anything can change at any time. Energy is always changing. Time is, but I love what I'm holding on to what you just said. That was interesting because I think about it that way too. What did you say? You've lived many lifetimes in this life?
Oh, I've lived so many lives in this life, and I have so many more to live.
I love that statement.
Yeah.
That is so true. Because it is. It's many different lives.
Yeah. And I take away different things from each one. And I understand that because I have a lot of, when I was in practice, I'd have a lot of patients and they were like 74 and healthy, like completely healthy. And and they were like lost and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm retired now. I might have, lost my partner or XYZ. And I'd have to let them know, like, if we look at time, like the way that we do, right, you could theoretically live like another 30 years. You can live so many lives in 30 years that I don't think it's hard to grasp that idea. So, like, although we get to, like, these later stages of life, I think although is looking at it as kind of like an ending period, it's almost just like a bunch of new beginnings that we can have in this life.
Vanessa, yes. Yeah. That's absolutely. It's like, just because we're ending one cycle doesn't mean that's the end of our life. We're just transitioning into a new life. Like, this is a new, beautiful cycle of life to experience. It's a part of our journey. It's not an ending. It's just the beginning. What fun experience? What lesson? What are we gonna get to see now? Yeah.
And who are we gonna get to do those things
with? Yes. Yeah. And I mean, absolutely. That's why when people hold on to the past or the past comes back, that was just a part. That was one of our lives in this lifetime that we got to experience and learn from. It doesn't make us who we are, but it's like, okay, next chapter, next life.
Yeah.
I love when I see the death card because I'm like, yes. And the messages that start to download or the visions that I see, and I'm like, oh my gosh, someone is going through a rebirth again. Like, what exciting thing is going to happen for their life? Like, this is beautiful, And
what I realize, especially and I don't know if you do any like past life exploration or like if you go into like the Akashic records, right? But when you take a step into like that space and you see all the lives you've lived, like all of the things that you've had in prior lives and past lives, I mean, honestly, the soul, just like the magnitude of what the soul is for us and like all these different journeys we go on. Sometimes when I have these dreams or these meditations and I'm taken to different spaces and I see things, I'm like, oh, that has to do with like exactly what it is that I'm going on, that's going on right now, or that I might have experienced like 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And you start to see how all of those things kind of bring you and make you into who you are. It really puts like all of our little lives into perspective.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why I love working with people. It's because when I see people, like, those are the things that I see in people. It's not just like a 41-year-old lady with hypertension and, diabetes. It's like those are the things that I see in people, and that's what makes me want to continue this work that I'm doing to
I
help
love
people.
that. I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah, you're utilizing all your gifts and talents
yeah,
um, to help people on such a massive level. But yeah, I do believe in multiple lives. I believe in past lives. I've done it. I've done past life regression.
regression.
I've gotten downloads with my past lives. I've done readings on them. But yeah, even in meditation or just downloads, where I'm taking time for myself,
Mm-hmm.
I can see. And I really do feel like our past lives come into this life in their own way. I don't know if you saw what I posted that on the channel, but like in one of my past lives, I was running through the streets. I believe it was Venice, and I looked like me, very similar, but
Mm-hmm.
I had no shoes on. I was barefoot. Yeah, and I couldn't speak. I was mute. I like could not speak at all. And so in this lifetime, I've had accidents or a major accident that affected my feet, which I healed from by the
Mm-hmm.
grace
Mm-hmm.
of God. But I've had a tonsillectomy, and I've also had my neck fused where they had to go through the front of my throat. So it's so
Mm-hmm.
interesting where I saw myself. It had to be like, I'm thinking it was like 1700s. I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
It was a long time ago. And then how it can come forward in this life. Truly, everything is connected. Um,
Right, right,
yeah. And even if we look
right.
at ourselves in different, when we look at the astral or different dimensions,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but, um,
And it's like that type of soul exploration is what I find to be
mm-hmm,
so fascinating,
mm-hmm.
so fascinating, because none of when we start to have these memories or these thoughts and these things come to us, I don't think they come for no reason.
No.
And one thing that I find interesting is when I find people who are in my current life with me and I see them in my past life, that is what I find completely
Interesting.
fascinating. Yeah,
Right.
completely fascinating, because I've had experiences with people in past lives that I have in current life. Um, and I hold on to those relationships so deeply, because for whatever reason we reunited, and it's trying to figure out like what it is that I need to learn
Exactly.
um, right now from those relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I
Mm-hmm.
firmly believe, we don't encounter people for no reason. There's always a
Mm-hmm.
purpose. Whether it's a past life relationship that comes back around. I love those. I think those are the best because it truly is about learning something.
Mm-hmm.
Something that, are we supposed to heal something? Are we supposed to grow? Are we supposed to clear something? They should be cherished in one way or
Right.
yeah, absolutely. So,
And even looking at like my work now, right? When in so many of my past lives, I was a shaman.
wow, I love it.
And so
Wow.
when I tie that into now, and I'm trying to understand, okay,
Yes.
well, what does that mean for me right now, right? Um, it's a very interesting space, because that's still something that that's going on right now, and in
Oh,
this life that
yeah.
I'm exploring and trying to understand, like, how exactly do these things tie into my mission and my purpose for what it is that I'm doing right now.
Wow. Well, think about it. You're
Mm-hmm.
working with herbs, you're healing people, and you're working with the divine and spirit. So,
Right.
that is just absolutely incredible. That's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
And something that I've started doing more recently, which I never even thought of or had explored before, I've started working with oracle cards lately,
Oh,
which
okay.
I'd never been led to before, but it's something that I have been recently. And so I've been working on that space and trying to figure out exactly where that ties into exactly what it is that I'll be doing. But all of these things, I think, come to us exactly when we need them to. And I
Absolutely.
think that as a part of myself that I'm excited about is just explore when I have the thought or when I have the feeling to just explore it and see what it means for me, because I think it all comes to me for like a higher purpose, and it's embracing that and
I
really
love it.
not shying away from any of those
Right.
things just because of like societal
Right.
norms or what other people think.
It's very freeing to step into that
Mm-hmm.
power and explore it and do it, and not be hindered by what society wants. To
Mm-hmm.
literally, whatever your soul is speaking to, diving into that. What a freeing feeling. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So,
And I'll say that 1,000 times. Like, I'm so thankful that I came across your channel, and um, even something as like listening to like, the readings from Kuan Yin, like that's something that I just started getting into and connecting with recently as I'm working on like a lot of the divine feminine aspects of myself.
mm-hmm.
And so I'm so thankful for those things because I think everyone has a different message to share that may help us on our journey. And so I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to be expanding on it. I'm still going inward to figure out how we're going to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful that I have the channel and I have all of you guys. It's a blessing. I really love guiding and being there for everybody to the best of my ability. It brings me so much
Mm-hmm.
joy. So I appreciate you too. I appreciate love. I'm trying to get in the
Yes,
habit of
yes,
saying that. I saw that. We were talking about breaking down words and the intention.
yes, yes.
But yeah, I'm very grateful for you as well and coming
Thank
on
you. I
here.
appreciate it.
Yes. Um, so how can I did post your
Mm-hmm.
information. I'm going to be posting links, but how can people, what is the easiest and best way that people can get in contact with you?
So I'm active on all the social media. So either on Instagram or via email is like the easiest way to get in touch with me. I might have given you the information for my website for the apothecary as well. That's another space where people can reach out to me if they have any questions or want to find out exactly how they can work with me or utilize any of the resources that I have. That's probably the easiest way to do it. But I'm always opening, I offer discovery sessions. So whether someone's not quite sure if we'd be a fit or maybe quite understand, what I have to offer, and if that may be a fit for them, that's something that they can utilize as well.
Okay. So, do you want to give some more examples of the different things, just to touch on that again, of the different things that you offer? If somebody,
Sure.
yeah, that'd be great.
So I do most of the work that I do is in the holistic women's health space, right? So I work with people through varying stages of like the women's health journey. So I work with women who deal with things like endometriosis, fibroids, infertility. Um, Menopause is like a big space where I work with women as well. And PCOS is another one. Those are like a lot of the women's health topics that I work with women on specifically. So I have books, like I have a kind of like a library of books that I've written over the years for those individual topics and books and guides. And so most of it is like holistic guides, right? Where I work with women on like integrating aspects of the mind, body, and spirit as they work to heal those particular things. And on a deeper level, I will work with women either one-on-one in the intuitive healing, or what I do from like the holistic health standpoint is work with women either doing one-on-one or group coaching for those things. So for PCOS, infertility, menopause, those types of things. Because
Yes.
I find that like the education is what I realize in medicine is that a lot of people just don't know. And so for me, it's like, well, how can I help people get a better understanding of like what these conditions are and having, natural or holistic modalities to help them in those things. And so
Right.
that's where like the idea for the books came from. Because they give like a behind the scenes kind of scientific explanation for everything. But then I have information about using, things like herbs, aromatherapy, meditation, chakra healing, all of those things are things that I use in the books to help with each particular condition.
And they can find that on your website, right?
And they can find it on my website. Yes, it's www.galleonapothecary.com. And I think I might have given you that information.
You did.
And so, and if
Yeah.
not, it's on my Instagram. I think I'm on Instagram, Threads, TikTok. It's just at Dr. Vanessa Gallien. And in all of my link trees, it has the information for that as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll make sure to upload it. I did put it on the community page, but I'll make sure to do it on the video as well. Oh my gosh. Is there anything else you want to share with people on this podcast? Anything?
Just sending all of my love and light out into the world. I try to do that every day in any way that I can, whether it's, smiling at someone, sending someone a nice, kind message. Like, the more love and light that I can share with the world, I think the better. So I always try to operate in a sense of coming from my highest self to be able to give that out to everyone else. And especially to you, Molly, because I know that the work that you're doing is so, so necessary, and I really appreciate it. And I know that other people do also.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, love, so much. We are
You're
a
welcome.
team.
You're welcome.
We
are.
We really are. It's a beautiful divine collective team, and yeah, we're not alone, and I think that's the greatest blessing and gift, is that we are all being aligned together to be able to to do this. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And if you ever have any questions, concerns, anything that you may need help with, or if you know anyone who have questions specifically, feel free to send them my way, because I'm always open to working with people and helping people along their journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me and beautiful Dr. Vanessa.
Thank you, Molly. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. So, guys, yeah, I'm going to leave Vanessa's contact information in the description if you want to get in contact with her. She is in the Houston, Texas area, but you can contact her through email and her website and all the social media. Thank you guys so much for joining us and taking the time, and we are sending you so much love and light, many prayers, and we always pray that you're surrounded by the Most High God's love, protection, and blessings. All right, thanks guys. Bye.